The blobfish. You've seen it on the internet, or at least in the thumbnail to this video. It's used in memes to relate to its bloated sullenness, and it's become quite iconic. There's a webcomic, several children's books, and all these plushies. It's also a real animal, but the animal shown in this photograph, and thereby the whole resultant pop culture of the blobfish, is a dead blobfish, whose body has been destroyed by depressurization as it was yanked from the deep. It's kind of obvious that a fish out of water is dead, but if you've just seen it as a meme face, you might have just taken it in as a funny animal. We browse the internet quite thoughtlessly. Have you seen your Twitter? Let's deep dive to see how the blobfish looks in its natural habitat. Oh, that's quite different to this. Maybe because this is a disfigured corpse. I need this pressure on. I need this pressure on. I need this pressure on. Other sea animals we recognize better when dead include the lobster and the shrimp, but at least their bodies haven't exploded. If you're interested in the actual living species, the meme version isn't. This tweet from Dennis Strauss is the best concise explanation of the misinterpretation. It's a well-expressed, righteous pursuit from an actual fish expert. Something in her field was misrepresented, and she's concisely educating the public. She's wiser than anyone else in this video. Thank you. Maybe we shouldn't call the real fish the blobfish now that the meme has gotten out of hand. I don't have the power to change that, but I can at least show how far the dead has spread. In this corpsey form, the blobfish has gained a reputation as the world's ugliest animal via this British poll. Here's The Guardian reporting on that and failing to note that the shown creature is dead. Good work, Guardian. Here's Paul Thurston on that one, advocating for this stunt in 2013, using images of the dead one with no acknowledgement that it's dead.
Some would describe it as a bit ugly, but I think the sad face of the blobfish belies a kind and very wise little brain in there.
The kindest interpretation is that he doesn't know. He's not really prepared any material. Maybe it's a bit, but if it's a bit, it's one about just appearing like you're making up dull crap. And that's my bit. Simon Watt is also in this video, bringing more implicit educational authority, but he still just throws the same photo up. I hope Karen Parkinson is getting royalties for this. And he perpetuates the ruse. Simon's definitely pointed out the corpsitude since then, but his website still looks like this. These are continuous oversights that misinform the public on this species and repeatedly suggest that a living fish like this exists by forefronting this picture as an example of an obscure animal. An Australian TV show did an unfunny bit on it back in 2010 using only the dead image. They also claimed it's endangered, which isn't really the case, but I'm not going to discourage caution. I think the main distinguishing features of the meme form of the blobfish, it's literally a dead meme, are its texture, its color, and its proboscis. These are in many meme portrayals all over Etsy, and vitally not in the living creature. I know that some of the pictures I show of living fish look more like the dead one than others do. As a matter of appearance, it's not an absolute binary, but still one where you can immediately distinguish, and I believe that most popular culture depictions are sourced entirely from the dead one. Non-binary between alive and dead. Now there's a vibe. Okay, here's a deep-sea blobfish in Octonauts. Here's one in Splatoon. Here's one in SpongeBob, a show written by a marine biologist. I know there's nothing realistic about the rest of their world's designs. I know Squidward doesn't really resemble a real-life octopus, really. So maybe pop culture can run with the blobby blobfish with its fictional aspects, the same way it does with the sponge-wearing pants, the funnel-mouthed hentai octopus, and the good billionaire. I consider it a bit mean-spirited to use a corpse like this, but where I actually object is where this misinformation is phrased as body positivity or education. Look, here's an educational video I'm not paying for. That's miseducation. David Walliams is a beloved children's author of hacky crap, and he saw this picture at some point and was inspired to write a book where a boy with a massive nose befriends a blobfish and learns to belong, and that his alleged ugliness is shared with a virtuous creature. I've read the book because I work in a library and hate myself, and it's low on actual blobfish content, but it does show it living in an aquarium and in a shallow tank, always resembling its dead self. Again, Walliams's world does not generally try for realism, and there's no need to judge it like it does, but the moment he chose to include the blobfish, he was reaching for an element of the real world that he didn't yet understand and failed to research, and he used it for a message that the real world extraction contradicts. If we should learn to admire and be like the blobfish that he shows, we should destroy our bodies. Actually, that sounds... Again, a glossary at the back of the book does distinguish the living blobfish from the bloated version, but the authors' and illustrators' contributions were clearly unaware. The correction got printed in the very same book that's completely based around the mistake. If we call this blobbity characterization creative license, it's one that happens to be shared between dozens of creators, and the not very creative ones. I found reports of a planned blobfish cafe in 2016 or 17 in Shoreditch because, of course, so that would have been a diner with an aquarium. This still hasn't happened, and I can't prove it's not a hoax because of how naive the idea is. But they named 3 fish they thought they were getting. Here they are with lipstick and a gender bow. That's a girl one. These ones aren't. They're normal. Again, they made a small acknowledgement that living blobfish don't look like this, but when you learn that, you should throw out these pixels lest you perpetuate and promote yourself entirely on ignorance. Yeah, there's an array of creators who've actually pointed out that the blobfish doesn't look like this when it's under the sea, but they do this whilst illustrating it as looking like this when it's under the sea. Sometimes you get an idea for a project, work on it for a while, then realize its core premise is faulty before you've even published it, but you stick with it because it'd be too much to change. I'm not saying I've done that on my channel. Michael Hurst wrote this poem and made a video on it, and again points out how it's not really like that, but mainly shows it like that. I blame his artist.
But here's the problem with this story. The blobfish looks quite different in its natural habitat. He's gone from deep sea high pressure to the low pressure of dry land, so perhaps the blobfish in its natural habitat is not quite as ugly as we all think it is.
And yet you're showing it like this. Here are some Disney kids singing a love song for the blobfish, saying they love it despite its looks, explicitly to the dead one.
I think you are perfect. Just wanna get closer to you. Oh, maybe not that close, my love. I can see all of your goo. Blobfish.
It's just comedy, but again, it's about this very corpse. Even this article I found trying to defend the blobfish from ridicule seems to not know it's dead. I don't mean to reprimand, I just end up doing that because I'm right and they're not. But really, I'm just here to observe how widespread this misinformation has become, where the blobfish's convenient dead function as an accessible, profitable meme fully eclipses reality. There's respectable creative effort put into these things, but it's either misinformed or willingly cooperating with misinformation. I had a bit here about Kev Payne and his book B is for Blobfish, but the source video went private, so I can't get it. It was just another instance of the same thing happening. Kev knows his stuff, he elaborated the bit about sea pressure, and took time on video to point out how easily misinformation can spread. All while he was holding a plush of specifically the dead blobfish and acting with it and thereby spreading the dead meme. Here's a very simple children's book at the level of reading comprehension where it inspired songs and it inspired games are kept as separate sentences because the children it's written for can't yet coordinate conjunctions. Impressively, this book notes that the famous blobfish became famous after dying. But it still describes the creature based on the dead one, and though it notes that it looks different out of water, it illustrates it looking the same in water. Come on! Here's a ridiculously low-quality Prezi video from the Australian Museum. What?
This is the story of Mr. Blobby. Earth. Spectacular, isn't it?
Many people have quite a negative opinion towards the blobfish. And I'm sure if the fish came up to hear this, he wouldn't be too happy.
The Australian Museum had the real Mr. Blobby from the picture on display for a while, but admitted it lost its cute appeal as the nose shrunk because the corpse changed shape, and they couldn't make a new meme out of that shape. A shape that I guess looks more like the living creature, as it's withered back the bloat a bit. I think they quietly retired it in 2014 when it decayed beyond recognition, but if there's anything wrong with showing a deteriorated corpse, that's what they were doing to begin with. Maybe I'm overestimating the distinction and people think this is an okay way to draw the living fish, but now they draw it that way at the same time as saying why it doesn't look that way. Maybe it's a miscommunication between authors and illustrators, like the illustrator sent back something wrong and the authors or editors didn't consider it enough of a problem. You could say that real blobfish are so distant from human culture that we may as well take the entertaining over the true. But this is part of internet culture, and the internet runs across the ocean floor. Real blobfish are gonna see this. Hi, please subscribe. The webcomic then, Blobby and Friends. It's sweet, it's not high on punchlines, it definitely upsets bad people, and yeah, there's a living bloated corpse blobfish in it. By this point, the animal has been reclaimed as ironically cute, but anyone who goes along with that finds a bloated corpse cute. And hey, if you're into those, call me. This webcomic directly invokes body positivity for Blobby's form. Blobby and Friends addressed the design issue, probably after a lot of feedback pointing out that it's a dead fish. And they chose a pretty strange approach. When in water, Blobby reverts to their sea form, which is implicitly ugly and terrifying, but their true blobbity form is fun and beautiful. Again, I believe that this comic was started from a message of inclusive but misguided body positivity about the corpse version. And when they learned, they doubled down on it by being pointedly negative about the comparatively elegant seafaring blobfish. I don't need realism from a talking animal webcomic. I'm just observing that the very core premise of this comic does the same damn thing as all the rest I've shown you, and faultily tries to spin it as wholesome. Anyway, buy their merchandise. With all of this evidence, I declared the meme blobfish to be a mythological living creature invented in the 21st century. It belongs among internet cryptid lore like Slender Man and Trogdor. I kind of welcome it, really. I think it can become a good mascot of humanity's intellectual apathy and mediocrity. Those moments where we see something for a second, accept it uncritically, then stick with it even when presented with contradictory evidence because it was more satisfying and profitable than the truth. That's what this creature represents. Meanwhile, the real living blobfish is still down there, waiting for food, doing what it's quite well adapted to do, though trawlers get in the way a bit. Maybe the living blobfish themselves can become a symbol for how, no matter what human pop culture misinterprets, a much less shallow world is out there to discover if you can look beyond the distorted, ruined surface. Can I stop looking at this thing now?